back to Credible Money Talks podcast. Celebrating Indonesian Independence Day, we proudly present to you our special episode on the topic of economic independence. Let's hear from Mr. Sridhar Rao, the managing partner of Trestle Capital, as our host.
Hello, money. Welcome to another episode of Credible Money Talks. In the region, August is a month where we prepare for Independence Day. Indonesia gained its independence on 17th August of 1945. Philippines gained its independence on 4th July 1946. India gained its independence on 15th August of 1947, followed by Malaysia on 31st August 1957, and the subsequent separation of Singapore on 9th August of 1965. So we thought to dedicate this episode to look back on historical events that played a role in obtaining independence. Independence has historically been associated with either a war or, as in the case of India, with a non-violent movement to drive out colonists or invaders. In the region, we have, unfortunately, to thank the German invasion that destabilized Europe and that allowed for Indonesia, Philippines, India, and others to gain momentum in their respective independence movements. So let us go through what happened. Here's a chronology of key historical events between 1940 and 1950. The German attack on England during World War II, also known as the Battle of Britain, took place primarily between July and October of 1940. It began with the Luftwaffe, or the German Air Force, that targeted coastal convoys and ships in the English Channel in 1940. The main assault intensified in August with large-scale air raids on airfields and radar stations. The climax of the battle occurred on 15 September 1940, now celebrated as the Battle of Britain Day, when the Royal Air Force repelled a massive Luftwaffe attack. With the intensity of aerial campaign that diminished after October 1940, Germany continued to bomb British cities sporadically during the war in a period known as the Blitz. Subsequent to the attack on Pearl Harbor, the United States in 1945 dropped the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. And subsequently, Japan surrendered, ending the World War. So, you can see, as a result of the above events, which weakened Europe and Japan, countries in the region gained independence. Indonesia in 1945 on August 17 declared independence from the Dutch colonial rule. In 1946 on July 4th, the Philippines gains independence from the United States. But in November of 1946, the Dutch police tried to regain control over the newly independent nation, and Indonesia fought back and kept their independence. Indonesia is ever thankful to its war heroes for this. In 1947, India gained independence from the British rule. Subsequently, in 1948, in February, the Federation of Malaya established themselves and were under British protection. In 1949, the Round Table Conference was held in Hague and officially transferred sovereignty of Indonesia from the Netherlands to the United States of Indonesia at that time. In December of 1949, the United States of Indonesia was dissolved, and thus was born the Republic of Indonesia. In 1950, the Federation of Malaya gained internal self-control and hence became independent from the British. Singapore, on the other hand, had its path to independence due to political differences such as unequal representation, disagreement on policies, and racial tensions, and economic disparities like common market disagreements and financial policies, which led to Singapore becoming independent in 1965. So we note that independence, which was associated with wars and turmoils and sacrifices, ingrained a deep sense of patriotism in the hearts of the population at that time. Now, more than 70 years later, we need to ask the question, what does independence mean? Does it bring the same sense of patriotism as it did at the time of independence? I personally think that the definition of independence needs to be redefined to evaluate how we have all performed post-independence based on some criteria. The criteria that I propose to evaluate as the basis of determining independence are: 1. GDP sector diversification, meaning contribution of different sectors to GDP growth, and are they well balanced? 2. The existence of rule of law. To what extent rule of law is well carried out in the independent countries? Financial performance based on balance of payments. Is the country having a positive balance of payments, or are they on a negative balance of payments trend? Unemployment rates. At the end of the day, a country which is independent has to make its population financially viable, and employment determines an individual's right to obtain goods and services. So unemployment rates matter. Going forward, the country's debt to equity ratio. Is the country overly leveraged, and how will they sustain if there is a financial crisis worldwide? Subsequently, how is the population fared? Are they saving enough money for a rainy day? Do they have security for themselves? Is another question. And also, I have added in a factor as to natural resources, which determine a country's long-term sustainability in the geopolitical arena of the world. So, if you think these criteria are sensible and appropriate to evaluate a country's independence, please put us a note in your comments, and wait for our next episode which will detail out all these criterias and also the performance of countries on these criterias, and subsequently we shall have a scoring to evaluate a country's independence and determine a possible winner. So who do you think might be the winner among these countries? Could be a good guess. So until the next episode, adios, bye-bye.